What's up, YouTube? You need a book to read during quarantine? This one. This one right here. Cue the intro. How's it going, YouTube? I've decided I'm going to do a video on House of Leaves, which is one of my favorite books. If you like this video and you want to help support me and see some more book reviews, make sure you hit that subscribe button or the like button right next to it, preferably both. Anyway, so House of Leaves is a book written by Mark Danielewski, and it centers around Will and Karen and their two kids when they move into this house that is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. Now, Will goes through all sorts of lengths to prove this. In fact, he even calls his brother, but his brother's a contractor and he has all these crazy measurement tools and like lasers and whatever to measure this house to get it absolutely pinpoint accurate. And what they discover is that the house on the inside is a quarter inch bigger than it is on the outside. So Will ends up taking his family out of the house and they go on a vacation thinking, you know what, we're just going a little crazy. Like, we just moved into this new house, it's a lot of stress. When they come back, there's a closet that has appeared that wasn't there when they left. And this closet just goes down into this abyss. Essentially, it just never ends. It's just continuously going and going and going. And they find that it's even changing. The house is essentially alive. And the walls of this closet are just constantly moving and shifting, and so Will goes in there and explores it. Well, Will is a director and he makes all sorts of movies, so he documents the whole thing, and Will is a really good director. In the book it talks about how he's won all these prizes and he's filmed all of these crazy moments, right? So he's really good at what he does, so everything that he captures is absolutely perfect. Now, the book isn't actually seen through the eyes of Will, even though Will is the one who films this movie. Yeah, the movie is found by a guy named Zapanyo, and Zapanyo watches this movie and he does all of these notes and research about the house and about Will and about Karen and everybody else that's mentioned in this movie, right? And he goes into great detail about all of this, but the book's not even from the eyes of Zapanyo. The book is actually through the eyes of a guy named Johnny Truant, and Johnny finds all of Zapanyo's notes on this movie that may or may not exist after he dies. So you're actually reading the book through the eyes of Johnny, who's seeing the movie through the notes of a guy who watched this movie that may or may not exist. One of my favorite things about this book is the fact that reading the book and having the hard copy of the book is part of the experience. This isn't a traditional book where essentially you have a line of text on one side of the page and a line of text on the other side of the page. The text on the book actually changes as the book goes on to kind of mimic the feeling of insanity that Will goes through and Karen goes through as they explore this house, and how the house kind of messes with them as they go through it. The first time you read House of Leaves, you're probably likely going to think that, okay, this was a really good thriller horror novel. And the first time I read it, I thought the same thing. But after I've read it like 3 or 4 times, I've realized that this isn't a horror novel. It's really not even a mystery or a thriller. It's a romance novel. The real story is between Will and Karen. You see, Will has poured his life into his documentaries and his filmmaking and has kind of neglected the relationship that he has with Karen and his kids. And Karen needs all of that attention, and it talks about how she had always gotten it her whole life because, she's a model. She's been praised her whole life for her looks, and she's always had the attention of everybody she comes across. And so Will not being there and going off on doing these crazy documentaries and his photography and stuff and dedicating his life to that has really weighed on Karen. And so you kind of see the story from both their perspectives. And while they both love each other, and obviously Karen is like super happy with the success that Will has gotten from, his work, there's still that like lacking connection that they have. And so this house and their experiences in this house ends up actually bringing them together. And you can tell by the end of the story that they've worked through all of these problems that were introduced at the beginning, and even introduced, actually there's certain problems that come about midway through the book. You start to discover more and more and more, and they work through all of these things, but it takes this like horrible tragic turn of events that go on throughout this house for them to finally come together. I think reading the book with that mentality that this is actually a romance novel and not a horror novel changes the tone of the book, and actually it changes the way you read the book. I think the reason that more people don't know about this book and more people haven't read this book is because it's very intimidating. The book flops between like Johnny's notes and then Zapanyo's notes and then the movie that Will is shooting, and it shoots through it like there's no break. Sometimes it'll cut right in the middle of a sentence and just go from one point of view to another point of view to another point of view, and you're left trying to like figure out, okay, well, whose point of view am I reading? Now the book does use different fonts for whoever is speaking at the time, and so in a way that makes it pretty easy to be like, okay, this is Johnny speaking, this is Zapanyo speaking, this is Will speaking. And the first time I read it, I got lost because I was like, I don't know who's talking right now. And I think that happens to a lot of people. They just end up putting the book down, and that's why you have a lot of people who really hate this book. You have people like me who you kind of suffer through it the first time. I hate to say it like that, but you really do. You have to suffer through it the first time, and then go back and read it again with that fresh eyes, kind of understanding what is going to happen. And it just keeps getting better. I think I read this book at least once a year for the last like 4 or 5 years. It's so good. If you like this video and you want to see more book reviews, make sure you hit that subscribe button and leave your comments down below if you have read this book and what you thought, and if you think that I've missed something or maybe you saw some symbolism in it that I didn't. Let me know in the comments, and I will see you next time.